Friends, think about a company where the chairman does not belong to the owner family. The owner family itself does not directly control any significant shares in the companies that they run. In fact, charitable trusts have the biggest say in how the business is run and who runs the business. Friends, welcome to the Tata Group. In this video, we shall unpack the biggest boardroom drama that is happening over the past few weeks and months. The theme of this video shall be the end of the Chandra era and who really controls the Tata Group. Welcome friends to this new video of Sapphire Talks English. I hope you find this very interesting. So friends, imagine that I tell you that one of India's biggest business empires is actually controlled by charitable trusts. Sounds strange, right? Normally, when we talk about a family business, we imagine one family owning the shares, controlling the board, and deciding who becomes the next chairman. But Tatas are completely different, and that is exactly why the current chairman N. Chandrasekaran is exiting and why his exit is so interesting. Let us start from the very beginning. At the center of the entire Tata universe is a company called Tata Sons. Tata Sons is the principal holding company of the Tata Group, and underneath this umbrella, we have various companies like TCS, Tata Motors, Tata Steel, Titan, Tata Power, Tata Consumers, Trent, Indian Hotels, now Air India, Tata Electronics, and several other very prominent businesses. So, if the Tata Group is a giant tree, then Tata Sons is basically its trunk. Now comes the most fascinating part. Approximately 66% of Tata Sons is owned by Tata Charitable Trusts. The two most important trusts are Sir Dorabji Tata Trust and Sir Ratan Tata Trust. And this means something very unusual. The Tata family doesn't simply sit there collecting dividends and buying yachts. A substantial portion of the economic ownership is held through these philanthropic institutions. The philosophy of the Tata Group is very simple. Business generates wealth, wealth supports philanthropy, and philanthropy creates a social impact. Very different from your typical business family structure, right? There is another important shareholder in the Tata Group, that is the Shapurji Palonji Group, which owns around 18% of Tata Sons. This means that Tata Sons shareholding structure is not just a family affair, it is a fascinating combination of philanthropic trust, minority shareholders, and professional management. And now you can understand why the question, who will be the next chairman of Tata Sons, is not just an HR question. It is a question about who will steer one of India's most important business institutions. And that brings us to one man who has suddenly become extremely important, that is Mr. Noel Tata. Now, before we imagine Mr. Noel Tata sitting in a room and hitting a giant red button saying Buy Air India, let's first understand what his actual power is. Noel Tata is the chairman of Tata Trust, and Tata Trust control the majority stake in Tata Sons. So Mr. Noel Tata does not personally own 66% of Tata Sons. It's a very important distinction. The shares belong to the trust, but as chairman of the trust, Noel Tata has enormous influence on the shareholder side of the Tata ecosystem. Think of it this way. If Tata Sons is the captain of the ship, Tata Trusts are the people who are having a very significant say on who the captain should be. Noel Tata is therefore extremely important in the succession process. And this is where things get very interesting. One major issue is the question of Tata Sons' future ownership structure and possible listings on stock exchanges. There are also questions about how Tatas aggressively should continue investing in businesses such as Air India, Tata Digital, and Tata Electronics. Now remember, Noel Tata is not sitting in the Tata Trust office deciding whether the latest Tata Motors SUV should have a bigger touchscreen. That's the management job. His influence is primarily at the shareholder governance and strategic level, and this distinction is absolutely critical. Because in a modern corporate structure, ownership and management can many a times be two entirely different things. The shareholders don't necessarily run the company on a day-to-day basis, but they can have, and in fact they do have, enormous influence on who runs it, how the board is constituted, and what strategic direction the company takes. After Ratan Tata's death in 2024, Noel Tata's position became even more significant. Now, with Mr. Chandrasekaran announcing that he won't be seeking another term, the spotlight has squarely moved onto Mr. Noel Tata and the Tata Trust. So the question isn't simply who is replacing Chandra. The bigger question is what kind of Tata Group does the next chairman represent? A professionally managed, aggressive, capital intensive Tata Group, or a more conservative one with the trust led approach? And that takes us directly to Mr. Chandra's nearly decade long innings. Now, let's talk about the man at the center of this entire story, Mr. N. Chandrasekaran. He is fondly called as Chandra and he became the chairman of Tata Sons in Feb 2017. His appointment was in itself very historic. He came from TCS, he was a professional manager, and importantly, he was not from the traditional Tata family leadership structure. That is to say, that he himself is not a Parsi and he himself does not belong to the Tata family or any of their close relatives. So, when Mr. Chandra took charge, Tata had just gone through the extremely messy Mr. Cyrus mystery episode. There was instability, there were questions about their governance, and Mr. Chandra's job was basically fix this giant machine. And it did some pretty impressive things. During his tenure, Tata significantly increased their exposure to some of the biggest growth areas of the Indian economy. For example, electric vehicles, electronics, semiconductors, aviation, digital commerce, and defense. And of course, the Tata Group returned to aviation in a major way through acquisition of Air India and its subsequent consolidation with Vistara. The group also pushed aggressively into semiconductors and electronics manufacturing. So, Mr. Chandra's visit was not simply let's keep the existing Tata companies running well. It was more like let's build the Tata Group for the next 25 years. And financially, the record has been very impressive. Reuters reports that during Mr. Chandrasekaran's tenure, the combined market cap of Tata's listed companies rose from 76 billion to 277 billion. Now, that's not exactly pocket change, right? That's the kind of numbers that even make a calculator nervous. And here's where the story has become more complicated. Because every big transformation comes with a price tag, and Air India requires enormous investment. Similarly, Tata Digital also requires a large amount of investment. Tata Electronics and semiconductor ambitions require enormous investment, and some of these businesses are not going to produce spectacular profits in the short run, or maybe even in the medium run. Semiconductor manufacturing, for example, it's not like opening a dosa counter. You don't invest today and say, okay, where's my profit tomorrow? It takes years to build that business. And this is probably the central debate around Mr. Chandra's legacy. Was he building the Tata Group of the future, or was he committing Tata to too many capital intensive bets simultaneously? And then there was another important issue, Tata Sons itself. Should it remain an unlisted holding company, or should it eventually be listed? How should capital be invested? How much risk should the Tata Group take on? And who ultimately decides upon these questions? That is where business strategy slowly becomes corporate governance. Corporate governance, my friends, is where boardrooms become much more interesting than Bollywood scripts. Now we come to the $1 million question, or rather, should I say, considering the Tata Group size, the multi-billion-dollar question. Why is Mr. Chandra leaving? First, let's get the terminology right. Mr. Chandra has not been fired. On 12th August 2026, he informed Tata Sons board that he would not seek a reappointment after his current term ends in February 2027. So technically, this is an exit after the end of his existing term. But the question is why? The reported background is a prolonged disagreement over his reappointment. And this is where the Noel Tata factor becomes very important. Reports indicate differences between them over several issues, like the future of Tata Sons, possibility of listing, large capital commitments, the performance of businesses such as Air India and Tata Digital, and broader questions about governance and strategic direction. And this is extremely significant because Tata has already experienced one major chairman succession crisis. Remember the story of Cyrus Mystery, right? So the fact that Tata is again facing questions about the relationship between Tata Sons chairman and the Tata Trust is obviously going to attract enormous attention because Tata isn't just a conglomerate anymore. It is one of India's most important corporate institutions. Think about its breadth. Steel, cars, software, power, hotels, consumer goods, airlines, defense, electronics, semiconductors, and global businesses like Jaguar and Land Rover. The Tata Group has therefore become deeply embedded in India's economic and industrial ecosystem. And that is why succession is bigger than just one man's career. The next chairman will inherit a Tata Group that is financially more powerful but strategically very demanding. And he will have to answer three big questions. First question: how much should Tata invest in next gen businesses? Second question: how should Tata balance growth and profitability? And the third question: who should ultimately have the strongest voice in Tata strategic decisions? Professional management or the Tata Trust? That is the real story. Mr. Chandrasekaran's exit marks the end of an era. But the more important story is now just beginning. Because the next Tata Sons chairman wouldn't simply inherit a chair, he will inherit one of India's most valuable corporate institutions and a very complicated balance of ownership, philanthropy, professional management, and family legacy. So, friends, what do you think? Was Chandra the right man for Tata's for the next decade? Was Tata becoming too aggressive with his investments? Who should lead Tata Sons next? Let me know your views in the comment. If you have found this analysis useful, please like this video, subscribe to this channel, and share it with someone who follows Indian businesses and corporate affairs. Thank you for watching till the end. I'll see you in the next one. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat, Vande Mataram.